Hello, everyone. We're going to get started in a minute. Unfortunately, I can't play my intro because YouTube decided to say that it's a copyright. Even though I'm using non-copyright music, it is still saying that it's a copyright. So I did all that work for nothing in creating a intro that I can't play. Isn't that nice? Leave it to YouTube. So I wonder if I can play something in the background and it won't be picked up on their dumb algorithm. Hello, Arms. How are you? Good to see you. Who knows? Maybe if I talk at the same time, they won't pick it up. I don't know. But I always like to play a little intro music to get whoever is coming in to come in. But who knows? It'll probably be snagged for being a copyright infringement, but whatever. But anyway, I want to thank you for joining me. For those of you that are here. Anyway, that's not going to work. So let's get started here. Let me remove this and let me get myself on screen. Hello, how are you? Good to see you guys. Tommy, Arms, Patty. Good to see you. Thank you for joining me on a Friday night for a quick story. Weather was bad most of today, so I would think that people would be home. I don't think too many people are going out. But hello, Arlene. Good to see you. I'm going to light my traditional candles here because we can't have a story without candlelight. What the hell's going on here? This thing is on its last legs, I guess, huh? There we go. That's a little bit better. What's going on here? Let's see. Here we go. Put one on one side, one on the other. There we go. Hello, Vincent. Good to see you. Thank you for coming in. Really appreciate it. I have my traditional Friday night libation, which is a old-fashioned. But welcome. So tonight's story, it's a short one, but it's an interesting one, at least I think. It goes back in history, which is also good. I get to give you guys a little history lesson at the same time. But today's story is about an individual by the name of John C. Calhoun. Now, you may not know him unless you are a big history buff. Hi, Gina. Welcome. You're not going to really know him. Maybe if you're early American history, if you're into that, or if you're into the Civil War, there's implications to the Civil War. But Mr. Calhoun was born in 1782, and he lived to 1850, died in 1850. Now, he was a very influential and powerful politician in America. He was from South Carolina. He was actually vice president twice. He was vice president under Andrew Jackson, and he was vice president under John Quincy Adams. And at that time, the Constitution was a little different. You didn't run a president and a vice president didn't run together. Those were individual offices. So different people would run for vice president and different people would run for president. So you can often have people from different parties being a vice president and a president, something that you don't see today. Hello, Kelly. Thank you for joining. Paul C., good to see you, my friend. So he was a vice president for 2 terms. And throughout his entire life, he was an adamant slavery guy. I mean, he's not a good guy. He's not a nice guy. He's not a good guy. He actually believed in slavery and advocated for slavery, for Southern rights, but states' rights, but also for slavery. I mean, that was his main thing. He believed, and he actually made a speech where he said that slavery was not a necessary evil, which most Southerners said. They said it was a necessary evil, admitting that was wrong. He said it was a positive thing for both the slave and uh, the slave owner. So he was a little radical, even for his time. He was a radical guy. But he was the biggest advocate for Southern independence and Southern secession way before anybody else was. He was big on saying, we got to get out. The North is not going to go along with us. We need to get out of here. We need to have our own country. And he was that way for a long time. In fact, now he dies in 1850. Now, and what the story I'm going to tell you happens just before he dies. So you have a guy that's been a proponent of slavery his whole life, South, states' rights, all about the South, against the Union, all that stuff. And about that time in 1848, 1850, there was a big movement for secession, and he was the guy behind it. This was before the Civil War, obviously. The Civil War secession took place in 1861. This was before that, and he was the big guy behind it. He was working behind the scenes, really pushing for it. And the story I'm going to tell you takes place about 10 days before he dies. So it's 1850, and he is at home on a cold, late winter evening, writing by candlelight, much like this, as obviously that was the only way you could write at those days, by candlelight. And he's alone in his house, sitting at his desk in his study, writing this paper. And the paper that he was writing was a plan for the secession, how the secession would happen, how the Southern states would secede from the Union and break it up. So he's going about his work, and it's getting late, but he's going to continue, and he's going to finish this because it's important, because something he had planned was about to happen. There was this convention of Southern states, and his goal behind this convention of Southern states was to get everybody to agree to secession and break up the Union right there. We would have had a civil war 20 years earlier, or 15 years earlier than it actually happened. So, but this speech that he was preparing was going to be the advocate, how he was going to tell them to do it. So he's at his home and he's doing this. As he's doing this, the door to his office slowly opens. And in fact, it opens so slowly and so quietly that he didn't even notice that it opens. And he goes about his work and he continues to write. Well, wait a minute. Before I continue with the story, I want to show you guys what he looked like, just so you got a good idea of what there's a picture of him. There's an actual picture of him. And I'm going to share that for you right now so you can take a look at what he was. He's an interesting looking guy. He kind of looks like a ghost himself. A bit scary. I wouldn't want to encounter him on a dark night, any place, the way he looks. Pretty intimidating. But that's John C. Calhoun. That's the way he looked. And it doesn't surprise you that this ghost story behind him. It doesn't surprise me at all. He fits the bill right there. Yes, Arlene, creepy indeed. Quite a creepy fella. Quite a creepy fella. So let's get back to the story. So stop sharing. There we go. Okay. As he, the door slowly opens to his study or his library, wherever he's working at his desk, and he doesn't notice it because he's so into his work. And a figure slowly comes into his library and proceeds to sit down and pull up a chair on the opposite side of the table where he is working. Now, he's working by candlelight, remember, so it's hard for him to see beyond the general area of the candle in which he's working. But he hears a rustling of wind, and it gets him, and he actually hears the chair move. So he lifts up his eyes, and he sees a figure sitting before him in a chair. Now, obviously, this startled him. He jumped back. He jumped back, as anyone would. Anyone would see. Suddenly, there's a figure sitting in front of you, in a dark room lit by candlelight, and he he begins to look. And try to figure out what's going on. Now, he doesn't say anything. He's pretty scared at this moment, just from being startled, that he doesn't say anything. And as you could tell from that picture, he wasn't a shy guy. He was often combative. So it's very, very uncharacteristic for him not to immediately stand up and yell, "What are you doing here? Who are you? Who are you? Why are you in my room?" But something inside of him prevented him from doing that. Whether it was just the fear or was it the shock, whatever it was, he didn't move. He just kind of looked up, at the startled as he was, looked up at the figure, and he couldn't make out the face because it was the figure was wearing a cloak, like a dark blue wintry cloak of the time, and the face was obscured in darkness. He couldn't see the face. All he could see was the blue coat. It was kind of torn and weathered, weather beaten kind of a look to it, but it was definitely a blue heavy coat, like a wool coat, wool overcoat. And as he's doing this, he first could, as I said, he couldn't see the face, but there was something I wanted to tell you about this. Yes, he was actually had the quill in his hand as he was writing, and then as he's looking at the figure, suddenly he hears the figure speak. And it's a deep, assuming voice, a deep, controlling, authoritative voice. And that what the figure says to him is, "What are you writing, Senator from Carolina?" And at this point, Calhoun again feels compelled to answer, but without outrage or without running or jumping up or anything. He simply says, in truthfulness, in veracity, he says, "I am writing a plan for the dissolution of the United States." And at that point, the figure kind of leans forward and asks him, "Can I see your hand?" Now, Calhoun, again, instinctively doesn't know what to do. So he kind of puts his hand out. And as he's putting his hand out, the figure stands up. And he could see that the figure is quite an assuming shape. And it's over 6 feet tall. And at that time, most men were not that tall. You know, if you were over 6 feet tall, you were unique and imposing. And the figure calmly, so as I said, Calhoun sees this, and what he sees is, he calmly puts his hand out as the figure asked him to, and he doesn't really know why he's doing this, but he's doing it. He's calmly puts out his hand, and as he's doing this, and as the figure stood up, the coat of the overcoat slowly opened to the point that he could see that underneath the coat was a military uniform, a general's uniform, in fact, a general's uniform of the old colonial army. And as he saw the general's coat or uniform, his eyes instinctively looked up. His hand is out at this time, and he kindly looks up, and suddenly he can make out the image of a face as it kind of comes towards him, the face, and leans towards him a bit. And at that point, he is beside himself, because it comes to him what he's seeing is a very recognizable face. It's so distinct that everyone in the country would recognize this face. And at that time, no media, only thing was newspapers. There was still pictures, but they were, few and far between. They weren't all over the place. They were hard to come about. It cost money to get them. So to have someone that recognizable that everybody in the United States would know who it was quite unique. And in fact, he he kind of loses his speech when he figures, and it comes to him who this person is that's standing in front of him. And it was, to his best estimation, the ghost of General George Washington standing in front of him. And as he does this, and as he's realizing that it's George Washington's spirit, it has to be his spirit, obviously, because he's been dead for 50 years. So, but as he's realizing this, the spirit reaches out and grabs him by his hand. And as he did that, a chill ran up and a tingling ran up Calhoun's body, to the point that he was shivering from the icy cold grip of the spirit's hand. And with that, the spirit says to him, "Is this the hand, Senator, that you would use to sign your name to the Declaration dissolving the Union?" That's all he says. He says it in a very commanding voice, though. So much that Calhoun just answers it matter-of-factly. He nods, yes, and can only find himself adding the caveat, this kind of caveat he throws out there. Let me see what he says exactly. He says, if certain contingencies arose. So in other words, he wouldn't do it he wouldn't do it under any circumstances, but if certain contingencies arose that he had to do it, he would sign for the dissolution of the United States. Hi, damn it, Mandy. Thank you for coming in. Good to see you. I didn't see you come in. I think I said hello to Kelly. Kelly, thank you for coming too as well. So he shook his head and he said yes, that he would do that. And as he did that, he felt that he once again felt a pain but this time it was a pain, and a black spot appeared on the top of his right hand. A very dark black spot appeared there. So at this point, Calhoun is petrified. His hand is in spiritual grasp, and something black has appeared on his hand. So he looks to the spirit and says, what is this? Why is this here? What are you doing to me? And George Washington's spirit says in retort to that, that spot is the mark by which Benedict Arnold is known in the next world. So in other words, portraying very distinctly that he equates Calhoun with Benedict Arnold, the infamous traitor to this country, Washington's biggest disappointment. He equates Calhoun to being Benedict Arnold, and in the afterworld, he will join him in having this black mark on him. So with that, Calhoun pulls his hand away in shock, looking at his hand. And as he's doing that, he once again sees the spirit. The spirit opens up his cloak and is pulling something out of his cloak. And he pulls something out, and it's dark. He can't see much beyond the candlelight, but he sees something pulling out of the spirit's cloak, and it falls down upon. And it's quite large. In fact, it was so large, it defied the senses that it came out of the cloak. It's something that it was so large. It came out, and the spirit placed it down on Calhoun's hands in front of the desk, on the desk. And as he does this, he feels the weight of this. It comes to him what it is as the candlelight shines on it. And it is a skeleton, a human skeleton that is drawn across the table, laying on Calhoun's hands. So both of his hands are pinned underneath this skeleton, this bodily skeleton. And the spirit says, these are the bones of Isaac Hayes, hanged by the British at Charleston. He gave his life for this country, and you would dissolve it. And then with this, at this point, Calhoun is shaking. His hands are immobilized, and suddenly a cold wind blows in as the door opens again. The door to his opens again, and a cold wind comes in, and the candles go much like this. They go like this, right? The candles go like this, and with that, the spirit and the body suddenly fade into darkness. So Calhoun finds himself alone in the room, petrified, immobilized, not knowing what to do, to the point that he just kind of blacks out completely the next, and doesn't awaken until the next day in his chair with the papers in front of him and the candles burnt down to nothingness. So that's the ghostly encounter that happens. Now, the next day, Calhoun is pretty shaken by this and goes about his days trying to get his normal routine in order. And he goes to he goes to lunch with a bunch of dignitaries that he normally would in Washington. He was living in Washington, D.C., because he was a senator. And he sits down and he's acting very strangely. And the people he's sitting down with are asking him, "Are you okay? Are you sick? What's wrong?" And he's just kind of staring into space. And he says, "I don't feel very well. I really, really don't feel very well." And these are Southern senators, so they were in on this whole thing with him. They were a part of this plan to have this convention to dissolve the Union. And he tells this story to Senator Toombs of Georgia. He tells the story of what he experienced that very night. And at this point, Toombs is kind of shocked and says, "This is probably you probably were dreaming. This was just a dream. It means nothing." But Calhoun would not buy that. Calhoun experienced it firsthand and knew what he really encountered. It wasn't a dream. It was reality. And at that point, he begins speaking to the senators and saying how he thinks it's wrong. He thinks it's wrong that the Union should be dissolved, that we should do everything in our power to stop the convention from happening, and for the secession to not occur because of all the sacrifices that so many people made for this union. And you can imagine the response of these senators, who he was the ringleader. He brought them into this. He created this entire thing. And they proceed to, tell him, you're sick, you're ill, you need to go home. We'll talk again in the future. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. We're going to continue what you wanted to do. Please just go home, see a doctor, get better. And he does that. He goes, but things don't change for him. In fact, that entire week, he continues to go around telling everyone how he is for the federal government and how the states should never succeed. And people everyone and their mother, so to speak, could not believe what's coming out of this man's mouth. This man was the fiery mouthpiece for the South to secede. And on 10 days after that specific meeting with those people, that he suddenly dies. So Calhoun dies. It's 1850. He dies. And when he dies, because he was the ringleader for that organization, the whole secession effort fell apart and basically dissolved itself. His fiery speech, he did write that speech, and they tried to use it. The surviving senators tried to use that speech to rally the troops towards the cause, but it failed because there was a compromise made with the North. And basically, many believed that if Calhoun hadn't died, there would have been a civil war 15 years earlier than the one that actually occurred, because his oratory skills would have convinced everyone to do it. And he was the driving force behind it. And when he was taken out of it and taken to the next world, that was the end of the secession process. So the Union was saved on that day. Now, was it saved because of an intervention of George Washington? It's possible. In fact, I told that other story at Gettysburg, where some saw the spirit of George Washington rallying the troops of the North, stop the South from winning that battle. And that was the Phantom of Little Round Top. So throughout history, there are these stories in American history of George Washington's spirit coming back from the other side to do everything in his power to preserve the Union, which he gave everything for. And to me, I think it's quite believable. Knowing, and if you know anything about George Washington, you know about the writings he wrote. He was a slaveholder, but he was against slavery, and I know that's hard to reconcile. He was actually against slavery. Thought he had to have slaves because it was the only way the country would function. The farming industry and the agricultural function. He didn't understand how it could function without slaves. Hated the institution of slavery, treated his slaves very well, and in fact contemplated freeing all of them at one point, but decided against it, thinking that they would not survive in a society that was so against them. So what happened was in his will, though, he does free all the slaves. So George Washington was definitely ultimately against slavery, even though he had them. And he was certainly the biggest advocate for the federal government. He was the biggest advocate for this country. And I think it's quite believable that that passion translated into his spirit coming back at different points in an effort to prevent the Union, which he loved so much, from dissolving. So that's my little story there about Calhoun, that creepy looking fella, and how possibly the intervention of George Washington's spirit prevented the Civil War from happening 15 years before it actually did happen. So that's what they say. Now, who knows if it's true? This is all word of mouth from people in the South that knew those senators that he told the story to, all of which are long gone, obviously, but makes for an interesting and spooky encounter, especially the circumstances of which that spirit arrived. I'm sure it would scare the crap out of anybody. It certainly would scare me if I was alone in a candlelit house and suddenly someone appeared. Oh, that's fine, Gina. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate it. So that's the story, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a short one, but an impactful one, I think. And I love to wolve in history in these stories because that's what I enjoy. So I hope to convey that to you guys, and I hope you enjoy it too. It makes the stories a little more interesting, I think. And and again, and this was not something I didn't make up. This story. This is a word of mouth story. So I hope everyone else is having a good night, and on this very cold, at least it's very cold here in the Northeast, very cold evening, and we had some snow today, and I don't think we're going to see a little snow in a while. We're going to see a warm up coming in a few days, a few more cold days, and then we're going to see a warm up. Oh, thank you, damn it, Mandy. I appreciate that. Anytime, Paul. I appreciate you guys hanging out, listening to me on a Friday night. I know people have lots of things to do, but I think it's a good time for those that don't have things to do to hang out and listen and chat a little bit and listen to my stories. And I hope I tell them in a way that interests you and keeps you hanging out a bit. I don't know if anybody else was on tonight. I really wasn't checking. I always do these shows on Friday, and I always do the wine shows on Thursday, and the Godfather shows on Sunday. So I try to stick to that routine. And if you guys can make it, you can. Awesome. I appreciate it. If not, you can always catch the replays, right? That's what the replays are there for, so that you can do that. Let's see. I think I said hello to everyone. Edwin. Yeah, hi, Edwin. I think I said hello to you. If I didn't, I apologize. I know you've been in here. The movie George Washington on YouTube. Yes. HBO series about our site. Oh, the HBO series, Andrew Adams. Excellent. An excellent movie. Excellent miniseries. In fact, hold on. Hold on right here. If I can get it, because I got so much stuff up here, which is kind of annoying. Right now it's annoying, but all right, let's see. There it is right here. Here is the book. John Adams. This is what the series is based on. Now, the writer, David McCulloch, he died last year. I mean, which was such a great loss. It's such he was such an amazing writer. I highly recommend his writings to anyone who's interested in history, because he turns history into entertainment. So it's definitely worthwhile. The movie is awesome. The movie is awesome. And he also wrote 1776, which I have here someplace. Yeah, I have it up there too. But the John Adams miniseries is awesome, and even on here, there's the picture of the actor that played it. I can't remember his name. What the heck is his name? Italian name. But I can't remember his name. I can't believe that. But it's amazing. It's an amazing series. I have not seen the Napoleon movie. No, I have not. Giamatti. Yeah. Giamatti. That's his name. I want to see the Napoleon movie. I have not seen it yet. Mandy, when did it come out? It came out, I would say, I don't know, 10 years. I think it might be 10 years ago now. I think. Let me see. This book mentions it on the cover, now in an epic 7-part miniseries event on HBO Films. And this was published in, when was this published? Wait, I don't know. It's hard to say, because this is the actual published date of the book, which is before the series. It might have been around 2010. I'm not sure. 2008, maybe. I don't know. So it's quite a while ago. But it's an awesome. You can see it if you have HBO. If you have HBO Max, you can always pull it up. It's on there. It's in their catalog. Hi, Osada. Good to see you, my friend. I had a ghost encounter back in 2009. Rude. Wow. I'll tell the story sometime. It happened in a pizza joint after hours. Wow. I have never had a ghostly encounter myself, a personal one. Like just a random ghost encounter. I've never had that. I'd love to have one just to experience it myself, but I have not. Yeah, so definitely look for the John Adams series. It's an amazing series. Thank you, Edwin, for bringing that up, because it's great, and I really enjoyed it. And if you're into American history, it'll move you. Believe me, it moved me. It was pretty great. Oh, so he made you a believer, Osada, huh? That's interesting. I've always been open to it. I always think it's plausible. I never was a non-believer, so to speak. Like I never said it's absolutely not possible, but I've always been open to it. So I always look for it, and it fascinates me. So I love telling the stories because they're fascinating. Damn it, Mandy says, head to the Waverly Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky. Well, any sanatorium is going to be haunted, if you ask me, because of the weird, cruel things that happen there. Okay, so he didn't like it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, different people like different things, right? So who knows? I mean, the preview looked awesome to me of the Napoleon movie. I don't know. But I intend to see it regardless when it comes on. When it's available. Maybe it's available now. I don't even know if it's available on cable or on demand. I will definitely see that. But for those of you who did not see the subject of my ghost story here he is again, this creepy guy. I mean, I think he'll scare the hell out of any ghost himself. Or he would have scared the hell out of any ghost himself. That's John C. Calhoun. And for him to be scared, see, that's the thing. That's what makes the story very believable to me, is for that type of guy to be scared, it must have been something real that happened. Something very impactful or powerful happened to scare that guy. He does the scaring. He doesn't really get scared, if you ask me. But that's John C. Calhoun. Yeah, exactly. Only a face a mother could love. You're absolutely right. Yeah, so that's our boy, John C. Calhoun. Not a nice guy, not a good guy, not a nice guy at all. But his untimely death could have prevented the Civil War. So who knows? Who knows? Oh yeah, Edwin, I would never go and try to disturb anything. Absolutely not. No, I'm just saying I'd like to have I would appreciate the encounter. I would not try to create the encounter. I would never do that. That's not good. That is not good karma. Yeah, Ouija board. I've never done that, and I never will. I don't do that. I would never do that. People that do that are I think people that do that are non-believers, right? They're looking for something. They're looking to find belief or faith. I think people that do that stuff. I am a believer, and I believe in, and I'm believing my faith in the Lord, and so I don't need that stuff. I don't need that type of vindication or justification. I don't need that enforcement, I should say. I don't need that enforcement. My faith is good enough for me. But I'm just saying, I would like to have the encounter just to experience it. To touch the something from another world like that would be amazing, as long as it's not, not trying to hurt me, anything like that. That would not be cool. So I don't know what else you guys are doing tonight or up to. I'm just, after this, I'm just gonna watch a little TV, I guess, and go to bed. No fun stuff for me. I mean, fun stuff, like no exciting stuff for me, I should say. Pretty quiet around here. But I thank you guys for joining me. That's you make it interesting, right? You guys make it interesting. You get scared if your TV turns off. And Tommy's keeping warm. Yeah. Well, yeah, keeping warm. That's what you got to do, right? Imagine what it was like back, speaking of history, imagine what it was like if you only had a fireplace to keep you warm. How cold it must have been. Yes, Edwin, my wife is here. Yes, she is. She is definitely, she's always here. She is my anchor. She's always here. But if I did what you say, I would get yelled at, because chocolate she doesn't want because it'll make her fat. That's what she told me. And not good for her. And roses die, and they're a waste of money. So I can't do either one of those things. But thank you for the suggestion. Yeah, no huggings of spirit. No, you can't hug a spirit. Come on. How are you going to do that? And this is another type of spirit right here. Little bourbon. Oh, you have gas fireplaces? Oh, okay. I have a regular fireplace, like a wood fireplace, and we use it on cold days. It's nice to warm up that particular room. The problem is it's only that room you're going to get. You're not going to get a whole house warmed by it, which is why in those older houses you see there's a fireplace in every room, because that was the only source. So whatever room they were going to be in is the room that would have the fire. But yeah, carbon monoxide poisoning. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a good point, man. I don't know. I'd probably be hesitant to have that going all the time because of that. God forbid it goes out and the gas comes up. Yeah, that's a little scary. So I get you on that. But they are nice, though. They're nice. They're nice aesthetic devices. Those gas fireplaces, because you just turn them on instantly. You don't have to worry about making the fire, bringing in the wood, all that stuff. But you also don't get the nice smell that you get from the wood. Like I love the smell of burning wood. Oh, thank you, Edwin. Yeah, the candle. Yeah, the candlelights is my signature for these particular stories. I think it adds to it. It sets the ambiance for the story. So, thank you for the compliment, or thank you for the feedback on that. I appreciate it. But, but anyway, with that, I'm going to say my goodbyes. Going to thank every one of you for joining me. I really appreciated it. And as always, you can tune in for the Godfather shows on Sunday, 2 p.m. if you want. That's, Tommy, myself, and Thendo are having a good time with those. So join us and join the conversation. It's a lot of fun without, discussing those scene by scene and delving into the culture side of it. So please come by and join us. Appreciate it. And I'm here Friday nights usually, not every Friday night, but most Friday nights I'm here. Every Thursday, we do the wine tastings, new wine each week, and a little chit chat afterwards. So join us then. Thank you, Edwin. I'm no George Washington. Believe me, I'm no George Washington. That man was something special. He was something special. Abraham Lincoln was something special. I could never be anything like them. Does Danny ever stop at Danny Stories? Andy, is that who you're asking about? Danny Stories? No, he's never been in the Ghost Story. I've never seen him here. I mean, he's been in the wine tastings. He's been on the wine tasting shows, but he's never been in the Ghost Story. I think he's putting his kids to bed at this time or what have you. Mandy, not all of them are historic. I try to do a lot of them be historical. Yeah, because I like that. Not every one of them is historical, but most of them are. So, and they're all in a playlist. So if you want to go back and look at other stories, you certainly can. Go to my page, and they have there's Ghost Stories and all of them are linked in there, so you could easily check them out and see what you like. Some of them are based on word of mouth stories like this one, or legends that are out there, and a couple of them are just stories written by authors, that I thought were good ghost stories. So check them out. And as always, I want to thank you, each and every one of you, for being a part of my channel and being part of my stories. I appreciate it. Spread the word if you'd like. Press the like button, all that jazz. On Ronald Reagan, no, not yet, but I can certainly look into that. Reagan is probably my third favorite president. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Ronald Reagan. Those are my favorite presidents. So I'd love to find something on him to do. So. But thank you all. And as always, help me build the guild. And I just want to say good evening and Baywatcher, how are you? Thank you. Anytime, my friend. Anytime. I'm happy to be here. And everyone have a great evening. And hit the like button and all that stuff. Yeah, I know. Tax day. I know. I did do a thing on Abraham Lincoln, the ghosts of Abraham Lincoln. If you're interested in that, there is I did that one outside by the fire pit, so that one is in there. the playlist, The Ghosts of Abraham Lincoln's Assassination. That's in there. So check that out. That's pretty interesting too. The ghost stories around that are very interesting. So check that out. But anyway, thank you so much, everyone. And I'll say, as always, thank you for watching and God bless. Love you guys. Have a great evening. Wine Guild is out.